Thanks for making it, guys. Hopefully, you guys will be able to share some value in today's call. Invited Cynthia to come on and share. She's. I don't know how I can describe her, but she'll also introduce herself. The first time I found you was actually, I think it was either in a group, and then I checked out your YouTube, and then I just started checking out your interviews, and I was like, oh, she seems like you know your shit. Just mainly from how you were describing the work you do. A lot of marketers are just talking a lot of higher level stuff. When I checked out your content, I could tell that, oh, you're actually doing the thing, not just talking about it, right? So I wanted to have you on. You've been in the game for a while now, so I'd love for you to just share some of your insights in the community. So please introduce yourself and let the people know what you do.
It's super nice to meet all of you. I've been following and just in the industry for a very long time. For me, I think what Serge was trying to describe is I'm like an in the trenches kind of person.
Yeah.
I've been doing this, like, for me, the name of the game is mastery. I don't really care for a quick buck. I'm here to try to be the best. At first it was graphic designer, then it was website developer, then it was media buyer, and now it's all around performance mark combination of all of that. So I've been in the industry now for the past 10 years. I've been in the background with working with pretty big agencies, white labeling for pretty big agencies as well. Once I got that experience working with agencies on the performance marketing side. So what does that mean? It's managing pretty big budgets for like high-end brands on behalf, like Mute Six is one of them. And then I decided to move into the brand side to see what it's like to manage from end to end. Not just the media buying, but like say like affiliate, organic, SEO, all of that combined, and getting to the point where I'm managing at least like around on a big month, maybe like the most was about 5 mil a month, something like that. It was ridiculous, but we had a big team. Over the years, I've had my own clients from the agencies that I've left. They kind of came along with me, so my acquisition strategy, it's all been referral based. And obviously there's a caveat with that. And there's like a huge hole in terms of scaling with that. But that's just been my route, is do amazing fucking work that you can never be replaceable. And from there, the results of your clients kind of sing. So that's my background. I've worked with worked with Damon John from Shark Tank, Verizon, all the way down to some D2C kind of up and coming stores, and kind of scaled them and got my hands really dirty with that and touched multiple avenues. Currently with my own consultancy, I mainly do a combination of paid media, CRO, and email marketing. So acquisition and retention. We do a lot of reporting with that. The goal is proper reporting is a big pain point for a lot of clients. And, on my end, with that consultancy agency type model, we capped at 40K per month. We only have like 6 clients though. So we do like really high end work for those clients. We just, my way of scaling is to upsell those current clients. We're upselling those clients in order to do better work for them. And so it's like kind of they're hooked on the juice. They can't leave us. But I capped. And so I'm actually venturing, and I was telling this to Serge, I'm venturing with a partner to focus mainly on specialized surgeons and just the overall health space, just because I have a HIPAA compliancy background. And my partner is already generating like 200K per month. And so we're trying to double that. So yeah, I mean, like in regards to venturing into something completely new and hitting that new level, it's all about knowing an industry super well and solving a problem very, very specifically for companies that make a lot of money, right? Solve rich people problems
Yeah.
is pretty simple. So yeah, I mean, for this call, I would love to answer any questions, anything that pops up. I have, again, like a media buying background. I'm still very much in the trenches. I have a team, but for me, my management style is to get my hands dirty. That's what I love because I'm never replaceable.
Love it. Love it. I would love to, to be the first one to ask questions. I have two interesting questions. And then everyone else, if you guys are curious, just jump in. You guys can ask anything that can be insightful for you guys. Right now, you were primarily focused in e-com, right? A lot of your clients are e-com, right? Like the 6 partners.
Yeah, so it's
Or
actually a combination of like e-commerce and also lead gen.
really?
Yeah, it's a weird space. So for example, we have this one client that they sell instructional, educational products and supplies. So you can
Mm-hmm.
go direct to consumer or you can go B2B, where there's these organizations that are also,
Mm.
putting in these large purchase orders, but the main
Yeah.
acquisition channel for both of them, we're just tracking them very differently, is Google Ads. And also we're testing LinkedIn.
Okay. Okay. And are these higher ticket things, or are they still kind of like mid ticket, lower ticket thing where you can buy it without necessarily needing a like, are they like digital products where you don't need necessarily like salespeople?
They're not digital products. You do need sales.
Okay.
None of the
Okay.
products that I work with are digital products currently.
Okay, cool. And when you work with these brands, do you, let's say, get a retainer and then rev share, or do maybe a higher retainer? How do you price your services?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so I've tried to do rev share before, but quite frankly, I've got over with that because they didn't share their numbers properly. And also, like, it depends on the industry. It's really easy if you're, you have an e-commerce store and you're using some kind of tracking tool like Triple Whale, and you see the revenue, and then you can take a little bit off of net. But if you're working with educational products brands where they have very big
Hmm.
purchase orders on average, like 50K and up, because these organizations are buying for the whole quarter type situation.
Yeah.
It's very hard to assess what's net, and it just gets a little messy. So my way of pricing is baseline fee plus 10% of advertising spend.
Okay, interesting. I love that. And you're switching now to this with these partners to go with the health niche. Do you want to kind of like share a little bit on like why that move is interesting, even though you're kind of like, you're already successful in that in what you're doing. It's not like you couldn't necessarily scale what you're doing. You could just scale by just duplicating yourself 10 times if you want to get to where you need to be. But why the second path?
So you can, for example, working with specialized surgeons, they make like a ton of money, and they are like, for example, we're working with this orthopedic surgeon bringing like 80 mil a year, and
Wow.
they're very smart. It's not like they're not smart, but they're not necessarily digital marketing savvy. A lot of the tactics we can rinse and repeat for orthopedic surgeons,
Mm,
specialized orthopedic surgeons in New Jersey, Philadelphia, and New York, right?
yeah.
Same thing for this specialized, we just closed a deal for this specialized surgeon who he's a pediatric
What
ophthalmologist, right?
what is that?
So they do
What is
like
alpha ball?
ophthalmologist, your eyes, some shit on your eyes.
Oh,
They do like droopy lids, like when the kid like
okay.
goes cross-eyed. Apparently that's a whole thing. So they
Okay.
do like this specialized surgery, and our tactic with them that we learned with this orthopedic surgeon is to try and get out of network patients. So that's like our tactic, and they make more money. They scale their practice. They work less. We make money. We scale them. We look like heroes. It's not like we're actually doing really good work, but because they're not exposed to that at all, we're not only putting them onto like a completely different business model in a way,
Hmm.
we're also kind of rinsing and repeating this process. And I could just show you, if you let me share
Please.
my screen, I can show you, like, I don't mind sharing this at all.
Yeah, I just did it.
Cool.
Wait,
Charge them
so
how we
they make
charge
80
them.
million? They do 80 million a year?
This is the ophthalmologist here. They make probably like 8 mil per year, but we can easily
Okay.
scale them to maybe like 15 mil if they listen to us, which they will. All right, so this is how we're doing it with this one client. I also, for this new venture, we're doing
Hmm.
everything not month by month. It's you have
Hmm.
to sign up for a 12-year plan, because in order for
12
this to be
months.
sorry, 12 months, not 12-year, a whole year basically. So that allows us an opportunity to actually see the results. Sometimes,
Hmm.
working in the advertising space, they're like, oh, am I rich yet? Am I rich yet? And it's like the first 3 months is
Yeah.
foundational. So our strategy here is to have them on this 12-month retainer, and
Hmm.
we're kind of building them up from end to end. So for example, for doctors, reviews and how you position yourself online. So my Google My Listings, we have to clean all of that up. We're going to clean up their Instagram
Okay.
page, their Facebook page, and I'm kind of including that in the one-time setup fee. And then from there, we're going to
Yeah.
manage it for 500 a month. Graphics, like we want everything to look a certain way. Again, if they're going after higher end clients, things have to look a certain way, right? My partner also does like a lot of video work, and he has a really great portfolio. He does things really well. We're going to discount that for him because we really wanted to close him. There's also, we're making a separate landing page with a separate domain, basically like a microsite for this. So we're charging them for
Hmm.
that. And then a baseline fee for Google Ads management. So this is the one-time fee. And then from there, it's $4,000 with everything included, plus 10%
Hmm.
of advertising spend. However, what
This
we
is
gave
sick.
him really, it's kind of like a no-brainer. We prorated it. We're like, you can pay that one-time
Okay.
fee, or you could prorate it. What you can also do is probably smarter to do this. We were just kind of hungry to close this guy. You can say, it's cheaper here. If you prorate it, you add like, additional 10% or something like that,
Okay.
but we know that this is like a custom customized growth plan because we're building everything from end to end. We've done this before. We know that it works. So we know that it's
Yeah.
going to lead to results on their end. And it's like a no-brainer for them. And we also had those referrals from other doctors. So 4850 plus 10%, month 3, they're probably going to be spending 20K. If results are really sexy, 50K. It's kind of like a done deal.
Nice. Okay. So this is actually interesting. I don't know if you've checked out kind of like the model that we're pushing right now with our clients and partners, but we've realized a trend where it's super complicated to actually stand out in the current space, right? And actually, someone commented on my YouTube, on my recent YouTube, is like, hey, but all of this seems complicated because, oh, you need to know how to get them clients, you need to know how to build their offers, you also need to know how to do operations for them. You also need to know systems and this and that, right? Because what we're actually getting people to do is if you're just someone who does lead gen, well, there's probably 5,000 other people who do lead gen and who are probably reaching out to the same prospects. And there's someone who does website who's probably another 5,000 trying to sell the same shit, right? So if you just stick with one skill, one service, then you're just going to be a commodity compared to 5,000 other people. So for us, one of the things we're doing with a lot of our partners is we're figuring out kind of like, okay, as an example, like you're doing with your doctors, you're figuring out like, okay, they need Google reviews. They also need their socials to be nice. They also need advertising. They need traffic. And then probably they're also going to need some ways to convert these leads into appointments. And what we're trying to do is trying to get our partners to build SOPs and mechanisms for each single gap so that when they go to these businesses, they're not seen as like, hey, I'm just going to do lead gen and then you have to figure out your Google reviews or your way to book appointments. We're coming in and being like, okay, so you can go work with 5 other agencies who probably don't care. Because if someone is charging $3,000 just for lead gen, they're not going to try to solve your appointment setting problem. Because if they even try to hire someone who's good at appointment setting, they don't make any more profit. So they only care to the point where they're profitable. So now what we're doing is with at least everyone who's on this call, the idea is, hey, can we come in and create every single thing that solves the whole thing? Charge up front, 15K, 20K. And then if the business is, has more money, then you can also put a little retainer on the back end. But actually for us, what we do is we take like 15% of whatever is above the baseline from where the business was before we implement this infrastructure. So it's interesting how you're kind of like doing the same, right?
I think that's what works because like, okay, D2C, e-commerce, there's so many agencies that they have just better resources. They're going to do it way better than you. Like I'm lucky that I have a team that I've trained from the ground up, but even still, it's such a saturated space. They're going to start working with Mute 6. They're going to work with bigger agencies regardless because of the name. So if you can go after, it's like kind of like blue ocean strategy, right? You just go after a specific area where they're being underserved, and a lot of the agencies in this particular space are super outdated. Solve a problem, a specific problem for that specific industry from end to end. Exactly what you said. So the next step from here that we're trying to build out is like fulfillment for all of these leads, and we're building that out in South America. Like that. That makes a ton of sense there. And then we just charge for the acquisition piece and then to close it because this is now a new problem for you. So this is how we retain ourselves or maintain ourselves relevant in their business. We're actively solving these problems. I really have a strong, like this, it's also a lot of relationship building. I think agencies nowadays or consultancies and things of that nature, you're only as good as your relationships with the current clients. Otherwise, I'm really cool with a lot of the ones that pay me a lot of money. I make you a lot of money. Why wouldn't you want to be my friends? Right. So, and we have a good rapport and they feel safe. That's really important. So if you not only have this rapport with them, you're solving their problem, you're staying up to date with their new problems because, more acquisition, more money, more problems, right? You're kind of in there for a long time. And I've retained my clients for 5+ years. And only because I stay up to date. Again, I told you, like, I'm all about the mastery bit. I go to conferences. I'm around very sharp people. Like I never want to be that person which I've seen time and time again, where they own an agency and they have everyone else do fulfillment and they kind of stay out of touch entirely. In a whole year, they don't even know how to run a Google Ads account. They don't understand what's happening. And I've kind of been caught up similarly in a way, but I stay hungry. You have to.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's almost like it's like an insurance policy. If you're always good at what you do, then no matter what, you're still invaluable for people who are actually lazy, So I like it. Okay, this is an interesting, because the last time when we spoke, I didn't necessarily know how you were gonna price, but like Jesus. So here's the thing. I've always, and maybe you can give me feedback. There's 2 types of people you can help. There's either the people who are experts at what they do, but know nothing about marketing, right? But there's also people who are in marketing, or in sales, but who want a new protocol to get more efficient systems, right? How has it been? Because I think maybe on the e-com side or in the digital product or in the education, these people kind of like build products that start with marketing in mind, right? But a doctor, they just focus on their expertise. How do you manage the people who are just experts versus people who may have insights into also the marketing, and also how do you manage that?
Let me know if I'm answering your question correctly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a media buyer, just that background of sometimes I have a client that they're just spending 500K per month, you know, like they just want someone to manage their Google ads, keep it as is. They have a whole marketing team. And I'm just the
Mm-hmm.
outside, you know, like jumping on calls here and there. I'm working with their marketing team, and I've also been that person on the other end, but I'm working with the marketing team, and my positioning there, like in order for me to retain my job and to continue to have that management fee, is to make them look really good. Like that's my mentality with that. Is that where you're going after?
Yeah.
So,
Because
so
I'm
my
trying to.
mentality is to make them look like fucking geniuses, rock stars. When we're presenting with the CMO or to the
Mhm.
CMO, like I'm talking about the entire team, I'm tying into them. I'm like trying to be their BFF. Obviously, I want to balance that with whoever's the main decision maker because they're the one that's really signing off on the check. But it's that kind of play. Even working at an agency, I was working with like usually the brands that I liked working with, I was working with a manager. Very
Okay.
rarely was I working with the founder because, you know, they're
Okay.
building out
Okay.
infrastructures. If I do work with the founder, my goal with working with them is to bring them to the point where they have a full marketing team because advertising is only going to get you so far. You know, you need someone internal to organize everything and to lead the strategy. I can
Yeah.
help you. Don't get me wrong, but just based on what you're paying me, like I don't know, you know, you're paying me a simple
Yeah.
management fee. Like
Yeah.
you need biz dev, you need someone to incorporate all of that, right?
Okay. Now that you guys are getting into the health space, who are you guys working with when it comes to, do they also have like a marketing department or maybe like a sales department?
Yeah, with this one, we're kind of building from the ground up. So it's kind of cool because we're not getting checked as much. Like I'm used to corporate, like
Yeah.
having to have reports a certain way, like playing the corporate game. I'm used to that. I'm also not used, I have experience in both. That's why I wanted to work corporate so that I can know how these corporate clients think, their internal team, so that I can eventually make them my client, right? So with doctors specifically or specialized surgeons, because not all doctors make a lot of money, right? Like the way insurance is actually kind of fucked with them. So specialized surgeons, they make a good amount of money. They have offices. They're scaling, right? You get them at that sweet spot. You know, also you have to take into account. I live in New York, Long Island, Queens, Brooklyn. These are some pretty sweet areas. Manhattan's kind of saturated a little bit, but like we're going after like Long Island is really a hotbed of rich doctors. So, and that's where I
Yeah.
live. So we're going after that too. So it's like location matters. There's like all of these little variables that kind of lead to like this perfect storm of where to niche down into because I'm solving
Hmm.
again a very specific problem. So with specialized surgeons specifically, what was the question again?
Like how do you manage them? Who are you communicating? Like, is there,
Oh yeah,
are
I'm
you
working
kind of,
with the doctor. However, I
okay.
want to get them to hire. Like we want to get them to hire a marketing coordinator. And like we can
Okay.
help as much as possible, but like on terms of day-to-day stuff, we want to get them to hire a
Yeah.
marketing coordinator for like in-house stuff. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Or what we do for this one client where there's retention, I mean, sorry, the retainer is like 25K plus per month. We hire for them, right? We're solving their problem even more, and they're an internal team member now. They're our team member, but they're
Nice.
working for them.
For them. Okay.
It all depends on how
And
much they're willing to pay us, though.
yeah. And would that team member be on your payroll if they're paying you 25K a month, I guess?
In the case of this client, they are not on our payroll,
Hmm.
but we manage them. They pay
Okay.
them, but we manage them. And
Sick.
so, for example, like we hired a social media person on their behalf. We're managing them, but we also like are in charge of firing them, which sucked. We had to fire them recently.
Sick.
Yeah,
Sick. I love it. I love it. So I want to go back to 80 million with that specialist.
they're great. Yeah.
That is it because a lot of people like have their specialties in demand. Is that the case?
They solve like very similar to us that we're trying to do. They do very specialized spinal surgeries
Mm,
that not everyone can do. They've also been in the industry for a very long
mm,
time. And also my partner has worked with them already for the past
Yeah.
3 years. He has actually a 5-year agreement with them, which is amazing to, in
Oh.
terms of securing the bag and building on top of the foundation clients, right? They've done so well just on how they position themselves online. They're seen as the best with specialized spine
Hmm.
surgeries in the New
Yeah.
Jersey, Philadelphia, also New York area.
Hmm.
So that's how they've gotten to that point. And then they open offices, like they're opening one in New Jersey, Cherry Hill, like a $20 million
Sick.
building,
Wow.
it's sick. You have some questions here, by the way.
Yeah, let's get into no, because I'm also curious. I'm trying to
Oh
make
yeah,
some
no,
money.
you can ask me too.
No,
Like
no,
this is a sweet,
no,
this
no,
is a
you're
sweet
good.
industry. I was
Um,
like reviewing the
yeah,
numbers, talking to these doctors, and it's like
insane.
it's
Wow.
kind of stupid as to why I wasn't doing
Wow.
this
Okay.
before.
Love it. So we have, let's say, Josiah, I know you had raise your hand first, so please go ahead and then we'll go through the chats. Guys, if you have questions, drop them in the chats and then we'll go over them.
Man, fantastic. Loved the conversation. So I'm just sitting, soaking it in. I have a couple questions for you. Hopefully they're not too basic or simple, but I am curious. Can you provide some insights on what led you to the critical decisions to find this market and say, like, this is where I want to focus on because of the opportunity here? Do you have a favorite process in place to find those really expensive problems? Or did this kind of fall into your lap after a conversation at the bar where it was just like, hey, we got a great idea here? And then second question is, are you offering any performance guarantees on that offer? How would you set that up?
Okay, so the questions I might forget as I go. So I
Okay.
know the first one. The first one's how did I come up with like the main, like how did I tap into this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first one, I've been in this industry now for, like, I say 10 years, but it's like 9.5 or whatever. Just round it up because it sounds cool to say a decade. It's kind of like a lot of failing. It's a
Mhm.
lot of like failing along the way. And for me personally, it was building relationships. Like I met my business partner now 3 years ago. Like I don't know what I can and can't say here, but we've together. Like it's been really cool. And we've always been like helping each other solve really expensive problems for my clients, for his clients, right? And I didn't realize he was making that much money, to be honest. And the stars kind of aligned, and I'm seeing the areas in which he's serving and how easy the work is kind of compared to the areas in which I'm coming into. E-commerce is really tough because of how competitive it is. And also everyone and their mom thinks they have their brand, like just because Shopify is so easily accessible and everyone can drop ship. And that's not the case. It's not sustainable. It's not really anything that's solving a problem. The marketplace is a commodity and it's going to be out in a year or 6 months, right? So e-commerce has been really tough. I've been sort of transitioning into lead gen a little bit. I've been solving specific problems with HubSpot, but sometimes things fall in your lap. And I've had a lot of things fall in my lap in the past, a lot of opportunities, right? I don't necessarily go after all those opportunities. I put myself in a position to receive a lot of opportunities. For me, LinkedIn has been a massive driver for that. Again, networking opportunities, just making sure that I'm rubbing shoulders with really smart people. I went up to Serge and like, I didn't really get to the appointment setting thing. I just paid him. I was just like, I really like what you do. This is really cool. I like to be connected. And I just, sometimes it makes a lot of sense for me. Relationships go a long way, and also supporting other people in any way that I can. It goes a long way. And it's also fun to be around like-minded people. And that's kind of like my North Star, because I wouldn't necessarily call it luck, because I have this very clear intention of rubbing shoulders with people that I align with. There's a lot of people in Serge's space too that I don't align with. I thought
Yeah.
his approach was very unique and I liked his vibe. So, same with my business partner, same with everyone that I worked with. Damon John, like that salary was like 70K and I live in New York. Like it was nothing, but it was a great opportunity for me to rub shoulders with some really cool people. I met all the sharks, were cool, and you know, some great freelance opportunities too that filled my pocket at that time. And that's kind of been like my North Star, like to say. And then I found this thing that fell on my lap and I decided to act on it. A lot of
Yeah.
opportunities, open yourself to opportunities just by your network. And then comes like the decision making of which opportunities to actually venture out and to test. I'm at a position where I also, like I built my consultancy up to a certain point. I built a name for myself. I'm all about calculated risks. I can now take the risk to, in a way, be without a salary for some time on this new venture. It's not the case, but I was ready to not receive a salary for some time. So if you're a serial entrepreneur, right, or just like an entrepreneur that people can really look up to, like you're doing multiple things and you're kind of slowly putting your eggs in different baskets and doing so strategically and see which ones generate the most amount of return. I ventured here. We tested some things. We spoke to some doctors. I saw his numbers. We closed this doctor. We closed this other doctor. The money speaks for itself. The market has spoken. We're solving a clear problem. I'm going to proceed in that direction. So it's a combination of network and just listening to the market overall.
Awesome.
And your second question, that's really nuanced in this situation. Like you can kind of do that with e-commerce. You can show like, here's a proven result. Here's a case study. And then here are like 3 referrals of really happy clients. With doctors in the space, specialized doctors, he did ask for referrals. We gave him those referrals. Those referrals were raving reviews for us. And with HIPAA compliancy, we can't disclose too much of what a doctor has performed. And we kind of have to say that because the nature of what we do, we can't share data from this other doctor, the nature of what we do, and they understand that. So for them, it's really the referrals. Doctors, I think, are similar to lawyers. I don't like working with lawyers though. Lots of trauma with dealing with them. But with doctors, it's a relationships kind of game. They have money, so they want to be able to trust you, and their network is kind of closed off too. Like they all kind of know each other in some way, or they've heard of each other, right? So if you give them, this big doctor, we're like on texting basis, you can call them whenever, and they give you rave reviews. It's kind of like a done deal.
And then in this particular case, did he ask for any sort of guarantee on for ROI?
It's hard to this is the problem with lead generation in general. It's tough. It's also a plus in a way, because with e-commerce, you need a guaranteed ROI, right? Which is valid. I perform that way too, but with lead generation, we can only say there's no guarantee. Like we can give you X amount of leads. Like it all depends on how much you're willing to spend and to test the model. Like, here is the model. Here's how it worked for other clients. We can't necessarily give you any guarantees.
Are you being upfront and saying hey, you understand this is a new venture for you, and so the model's been tested in other verticals, but not this one specifically? Is that doctor aware of that kind of dynamic playing out?
Yeah, no, so for me, my partner is not new to this. Yeah. Technically I am, but I've done this before. Like you mentioned, I've done this. It's kind of the same shit. It's actually easier. And if I really were to sit down and tell him the truth, listen, I've done way more complex shit. This is actually super fucking easy compared to what I've done in the past. Why say it like that? It's one of those things where he really trusts those doctors. It's all about the referrals. So with doctors in this way, performance guarantee is really, really tough.
No, I like it. That's a good answer too, because I think it would be hard to say hey, I can bring or deliver X amount of revenue or whatever.
And you don't want to say that. You can say, right, exactly. It's a test here because, he's never really gone out of network insurances. And we sat down with him and I really spoke to him, and he's like, I'm work too much. And these insurances don't pay out, right? And we're like, listen, we're going to position you because my partner's already done this with another doctor, and the doctor kind of put him onto game, and now we're kind of replicating that game for all these doctors. You got to hit out of network. So per surgeon, yeah.
That'd be my last question then, is how did you position this in terms of the marketing? What angle did you take that was his biggest pain point for him, where he was like, this makes total sense, and that kind of is why he's invested?
Biggest pain point for him. So he addressed his biggest pain point. We had this conversation in person too. I think he's been fucked over in the past by other marketing people. So going in person and having that honest conversation with him, making sure, in this case, we want to build up as much trust as possible. And I kind of have this mindset with every client, but I feel it out case by case. Trust is the main issue. So how can I make sure that he feels secure in every point of this process from end to end? It sounded to me, based on what we were speaking about, the marketers in the past, is they didn't have a clear project management system. They didn't have a clear onboarding process. So for me, onboarding it's very important, because afterwards, after the 6 months, you can kind of fuck off and do whatever you want. They trust you. And that's the best way to have a relationship with a client. I do my best work with the most amount of trust, because now there's space to test. Now there's space to, hey, there's new demand gen type of ads. Why don't we try this? for Google. So what was important is to make sure that he understood the process from end to end. So here's what we're going to do first, then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And I'm going to add you to this workspace. It's very easy for, in his case, we need to have it on Google Sheets because like Notion is just like another annoying thing for him. We're going to have this onboarding checklist and you have full access to it and we're going to be working off of this and it's going to be fully transparent. We're going to have monthly calls. You can hit us up whenever. You don't want to say that to everyone. It's a bad idea. But in this case, like he's so busy, he's so fucking busy. So that, and then addressing the pain point of like, our goal is to get you to work less and make more. And that sounds like a bullshit, fluffy kind of thing, but here's the exact process in which we're going to do it. And that's where we laid out like this game plan for him of like everything that he needs. And then it's also like, hey, this is our recommendation, but if you want to take something out, like by all means, but like he's got money. So if he really wants to like secure the success of this is what's going to take. Marketing is expensive. Doing it well is expensive. So all of that is expensive. So we just need to make sure he understands that. And he did. Does that answer your question? It's kind of all over the
definitely.
place.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to jump out of the question space to let other people answer. Get some answers.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, cool. So let's go through the questions a little faster, or else we might spend the day here with just answering to Josiah's questions. All right, cool. So Yuva asked, at what point do you know if it's better to be their marketing side or to help them implement the systems in their company? When do you do it for them, and when do you decide to actually build it in-house for them? Essentially, I guess.
So I kind of measure how much effort I'm going to put into a brand based on how well I can scale it. And that's not just dependent on my efforts. Like I could do the best work in the world, but if they have a shitty team, if the headspace around actual growth is kind of funky, if they're uncollaborative, if they don't trust me from the get, it's not going to work out. And I'm not going to put all that extra effort into it. However, if I'm really trying to solve a problem for them, I already know just based on my setup, they're going to spend more money, then I'm incentivized to do so. Plus, they're going to pay me for the additional effort of doing that extra work. Yeah, I'm going to put in that effort. That's how I see it.
Okay, cool. Yuva, you want to?
Basically, so you just base that on vibes when you speak to them?
Base what on vibes? Sorry.
Your decision about either building with them or just doing the marketing like by yourself and stuff.
It's more than just like woo-woo vibes. It's like how well the business is doing. I think we can all gauge what a good founder is and a bad founder. We can all gauge someone who's actually growth oriented, right? Invested in growth. They're actually aggressive in their growth, or if they're more like, fixated on ROAS, which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong. We need to stay in a certain green area. And it's not like we don't measure it. We absolutely do. But sometimes we have to sacrifice that in order to push forward. More than vibes, like if I don't respect them as a founder, like if they're not, one, if I'm making more than them, that's like kind of sucks. And then two, all the moves that I make, I'm expecting them to make too, and so if they're not savvy in that, if they don't know their industry super well, if they don't know how to actually grow in their industry in a specific way, they're not willing to make those investments, like you mentioned, I can't really help you. It costs money to hire additional help. Like everything, it's a business. We live in a capitalist society. I can help you only as much as you want to help yourself. For example, this, I'll bring an example in. I'm very invested in working with them only because I've seen the growth and the work that we've done already. The account was ripe to scale. All of the right variables were in place, the right founder, the right team, the headspace around it. He's already kind of digitally savvy too. So it's like we can even collaborate, we can co-work, right? We can get a lot done. My team aligns with him as well, and their management fee is like $3,500. It's not a lot, but it increases month over month. And there's a lot of opportunity for that to scale. And I'm okay with even, a month we don't spend, like maybe it's $1,500, $2,000. I don't really care. I want to see the business grow more so than anything, because that's where I'm going to reap the benefits. And also I'm thinking long-term in the sense of having that client for a very long time.
Love it. Daniel, you had a question on essentially how do you manage your time between all the things
How do I manage my time? I mean, I can share my calendar. I prioritize fitness as much as possible. I block off my mornings. You know, I work with a small amount of clients, so I do really intense work with a small amount of clients. So I've been in a space, and I've worked in agencies where they've given me like 20 clients. I don't really do that anymore. I don't need to. Again, I've been in this industry for a while. I've already paid my dues. It's how I like to see it. Doesn't mean I won't get my hands dirty again. I love doing that. But you know, like in order for me to show up really well, like I need to sleep. I need to work out. And so I just do a lot of time blocking on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, I don't know what's happening. Everything's on my calendar.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I guess like the thing that I was kind of trying to get to is like where you're constantly, like the market's constantly evolving and things like that, and you're obviously dealing with some very complex situations practically day to day. Where do you kind of find the time to really pull new information and source new information, actually put it into what's already working? And like that, what's your thought process behind actually like, let me run with this
That's
because
a
it's
great
new
question,
and might be
actually.
better? Or
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. So with my team, we have it's only 3 of us, but we have on Mondays, oh well, I changed it to Tuesdays. We have a touch base, and we're either kind of co-working or reviewing client accounts, or we review like major updates in a platform. We kind of stay competitive with what we know. I mean, you know, I work with this dude that I initially coached him, I trained him, and then I hired him, and he's become a wizard since, and he keeps me on my toes. I just have these guardrails of being around people that are really smart. I have naturally like a competitive spirit, not in a toxic way, not anymore, but so I kind of stay on my toes with that. If there's new information, we share it. We make sure that we share it. I'm around people that are equally passionate about these updates. I also stay very updated on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like my resource for everything, following the right people, newsletters, you know, things of that nature. I dedicate an hour of just like researching any updates within advertising. Usually like the main thing that changes the most is like the Meta platform, Google Ads, especially any updates there. For networking events, I try to do a networking event. You know, I have like a quota for myself, at least 3 per month. If I could do more, like awesome, just make it fit into my schedule and maybe offload some stuff to my team.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome because it's like, I think the one thing for probably the stage a lot of us are at is actually understanding when you like, obviously it's like work, but when it starts running and when it actually starts like the flow starts happening, it's like, how do you keep improving? And it's interesting to hear it from your perspective. So no, thank you.
Yeah, and also like being a part of this, right? Like I'm a part of all additional groups like Foxwell. I got in really early, so and then I got connected with them at the Triple Whale event. So, you know, like I'm in these communities where these conversations are happening, very smart conversations, very sophisticated conversations. So I just make sure that if it's online and also in person, like I'm being challenged constantly.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Next question. We don't have much time, so we'll go through these faster. How would you differentiate yourself from the competition, as e-com is so sophisticated and competitive? As someone who's selling growth to brands, kind of create your own blue ocean. How have you been able to kind of like stand out in
Yeah,
e-com?
so for e-commerce, again, it's so competitive, like you said. I stay up to date as much as possible with all the tools available. You know, I'm also very in the trenches with my clients with the Shopify stores, and also with one client in particular, I've learned the most. I've noticed that this is the case with a lot of really high-end marketers and people that are making like over 100K per month type situation, is that they learned a lot with one client. So this one client that I had, I pretty much was everything for them. I learned a lot. My management fees were abysmal then, but I learned so much, and I upsold all that knowledge to the next client. And I kind of kept it going. I had to increase their fees because they also wanted additional things, but it's still on the lower end of like 5,400. And I'm also doing email for them. But I learned everything with that one client. I gained their trust and then started doing additional things for them at a discount. I learned those skill sets. And then I got like really well versed with like the apps. Like I tested all with them. They had my trust from the beginning. So I can test all these things with them. Like, okay, we just learned something and this like triple whale event, whatever. So then I can talk about it with another client. And, you know, when I'm on sales calls, I don't really call them sales calls. I'm just shooting the shit. You know, it's more conversational. I bring up their account. I'm like, here's exactly what we do. And they're like, oh my God, you know, they see a nice jump and I just do it in real time with them. Like, look at this. Like, this is exactly what I'm doing for this client. And this can work really well for you. Look, you know, I just show them the results like that. And I did that initially with this one client, like call it like a foundational client where I learned everything from with them, their account. And it was a huge advantage for them because, you know, I gave them discounted fees for working with I like to think I'm smart, you know, it helped them out too. That and also like blue ocean competition. Yeah, I also position myself kind of like as a growth marketer, consultant. Sometimes it can be weary if it's another agency. Like I like to work very in the company as much as possible. It just helps for all of us because there's always connecting parts and moving parts. So it just helps to have that, you know, they see me as a partner. They see me as a team member internally too. They know, I mean, I set the boundaries in my contracts, but it's kind of cool to collaborate in that way. Yeah.
We're going to jump to Guru's question. In your breakdown for your new client, it showed you had ads for both Google and Facebook based off of your data for a specific niche, eye doctor thing. What have you seen work better? Reason for the questions, we work with restaurants and we're expanding into private events, almost like a venue visit for people who want to host large birthdays, large parties, which could be considered quite intent based. And so trying to think if we could focus more on Google, Facebook, or both.
Yeah, it depends on the industry. Like, do you know restaurants really well? This in the past, like the restaurants that I've worked with, they work really well with like local ads on Meta, because it's a visual thing that you're selling. Private events is, you know, something that you can sell a little bit better visually. You know, it depends on like if you're doing research on Google, you got to look up those cost per clicks. Meta is always cheaper, but that's because it's more like interruptive ad marketing, right? There's not as much buyer intent. If I'm searching for what would be like private events to host my next birthday near me, that's kind of a crazy long tail keyword, or like private events based near me, right? Maybe you want to show up for that on a local level, but you have to make sure like it all depends on their budget too. So I want to say that's a good question, but you're not asking it in the right way. Like first you'd be like, what's their budget? Do the research on the actual keyword, the cost per click to see if it's worth it on Google. And then if they can't afford that on Google, then you kind of tiptoe into Meta. And if there's enough budget to test both, then you test both. Sometimes if they just have $1,000, like I don't think you can really do much with that on Google. You know, stick to Meta, right?
Question on that. For you, because we're also starting to go a little heavier on ads. So do you ever pick a platform? Let's say do you pick Meta if it's like, okay, low budget, and then when you're like, okay, we want more intent, more qualified prospects, where's that middle ground where you're like, this is not enough to even validate, to even try to work with Google versus, oh, this is not like, how do you, because I guess you could still spend that money on Google, right? So do you validate like the cost per lead on Google or the click or whatever?
Yeah, you know, instead of there's another approach to this. It's like instead of kind of looking at your budget and what's cost effective, like you do need testing budget when you're testing a new platform, right? But you can also think, what are competitors doing and how are they doing it really well? And where are they investing their budgets? And usually they've tested some things out already. So you kind of go based on like, all right, they're clearly spending all of their money on Meta. And then you do some research and you're like, oh, cost per clicks are like $20. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are you asking for yourself or like, are you just in general?
Yeah, no, because we're also spending, by the way, guys, look at the sunset. I think it's pretty nice. But no, so we're kind of like on YouTube too, but we're trying to figure out like, okay, because we're getting a pretty good cost for the views and impressions, and the cost per lead is sometimes not necessarily it's not like 3 times more, it might be 2 times more expensive than Meta. So I'm trying to figure out like, okay, is it sometimes worth to try 2 platforms at once? Or is it better to just focus on one and then scale that to a certain budget? Like when is it, okay, so maybe let's not look at budget wise. Let's say you have the money to spend. When would you, as an example for our brand, what we're trying to do is trying to find more people who are pushing service offers, and we're trying to either get them educated and then eventually partner with us. Where do you decide to be like, okay, I want to put some budget on YouTube versus, hey, Facebook cost per lead is good, everything is good, let's keep pushing that. Like, do you ever have a moment where you're like, okay, we should try a new channel?
Here's how I would sniff it out in your case. Where are you performing really well organically? YouTube. Let's maximize on
YouTube.
that, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would not, regardless, spend money on YouTube. Because I would start measuring like your earned subscribers, your earned views, and there's also view through conversions through YouTube. I would just make sure you monitor that. I do that with a client too. You want to monitor that as much as possible, right? And you kind of want to add it all into your bottom line. So you can see it as in a different way. And, it also depends, like cost per click, you said it was pretty good. A cost per view, sorry. So, if you see this as in a funnel and your upper funnel is up here, and that's all coming from YouTube, and you're kind of using YouTube as a brand awareness to build into your content, and you know that your content sells, and then you're kind of using Meta as more direct to sale additionally, I think you're just building it's about building an ecosystem and an infrastructure that is not reliant on just one platform. That's what I advise my clients always. If you're just relying on Meta, it's kind of stupid. Why don't you test into additional platforms? Why don't you look into, okay, you're kind of doing pretty well with this. Maybe we can optimize for a cheaper cost per view, whatever the case is, right? Maybe we can optimize for a cheaper cost per lead, sure. But we have additional testing budget. These two work together. I would look at blended metrics, Juan, like what does it cost period for a cost per lead, and monitor that month over month based on what you do in terms of spend, your budget allocation, and then test an additional channel on top of that. I think in your case, it would be silly to not advertise on YouTube.
Yeah, we're trying to do that. Only thing is that we figure out that like if you can't necessarily, we know that YouTube works, but we don't necessarily know how well it works, but mainly because we're not necessarily tracking the whole journey. We're now starting to use Hyros, so that's a bit more clear. But I know that a lot of yeah.
The best thing you could do, I mean, the software is a little faulty. I'm happy to audit your account, but here's the thing. You have to look at overall blended metrics, because I've worked with really big brands that have spent, Talkspace is one of them. Their biggest competitor is BetterHelp. They have spent, and I was the marketing manager. We spent, not my money, but their money. Like, I think it was like 100 and something K on the sophisticated MMM modeling tool from Newstar. And the results are inconclusive. It all depends on so that's all to say that attribution is always going to be flawed to some extent.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to always go back to the basics. I'm not discrediting that kind of modeling. It's important to understand, and it's kind of nice to have if you can afford it. But the best thing to monitor is your overall blended metrics and looking at your spend mix on that month. That's the easiest thing to do. And then tracking like your efforts. Like sometimes you got to go old school and have an optimization log. What are the main efforts that you made? Like here. That was a fucking nice ass month. This is why reporting is so important, because no one understands what exactly is really moving the needle. So I would just focus on
just a blended like we
reporting.
spent this, we made more. Yeah.
What are we targeting? Because, there's different options in which you can target on YouTube, like channels, things like that.
Love it. But yeah, would love to, if you want, can talk sometime. Come in the week so you can check out what we're doing. All right,
has
cool.
one last question that I'll.
Yeah, let's do it.
Out of interest, what
are your
softwares are you using? Hootsuite, Sprout, HubSpot? Do you monitor social chatter? For me, it's the results. Like the results speak. I focus a lot on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been a major platform for me. In terms of the quality of the clients, I'm not after big numbers too. You have to understand we're with 6 clients currently. Doctors are separate, right? I'm all about getting the right client. So I really value referrals. So I have partners or people in my space or similar, they'll do SEO or whatever. I will give them a referral incentive if they refer to me a good client. I'll give you like 2K off the bat plus, depending on how big the deal is. I value that more so than anything, as opposed to, positioning myself as a guru or whatever. I think YouTube is awesome though. Like I have content on YouTube. It's hard to upkeep. But it's one thing when I do have the time and the space, I would focus on YouTube research for your clients. I don't know how you could do like research on Hootsuite and Sprout, HubSpot. I use SEMrush. HubSpot is a CRM tool. I use SEMrush. I've used Social Blade in the past. I don't really do much organic. SEMrush and SpyFlu. Those are my competitor analysis tools.
Love it. All of it. Okay, I think we should wrap up. Interesting thing, Cynthia, I think we should in the next few months, what I'm doing is we're kind of like building different playbooks for different verticals. And one of the things that I think would be nice is maybe kind of like have you as a consultant and for a lot of the communities. So we have different community. We have a subscription community, and we also have a bunch of different partners who are scaling with selling infrastructures. And I think even better than what we did here, which is more of like a Q&A, it's actually more. Actually, let's go a little deeper, maybe strategy and a little bit more tactical stuff where you can actually do breakdowns of like how are you actually scaling different offers, different brands, different, whether that be brick and mortar, whether that be online. I think that's something that would be really helpful for me, for the clients. So yeah, I think we should talk a little bit more about that.
But yeah, I'm absolutely down to help. I love this is one of those things that I believe, like I mentioned, like in terms of networking or just establishing long-term relationships. I do this all the time. Again, I'm not getting paid for this, right? But it's one of those things where you never know who's going to refer you to your next big client.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for jumping on and making time. Really appreciate it. If you guys loved
pleasure,
it, please
guys.
drop a little fire in the chat, and then we're gonna wrap this up.
Awesome.
All right.
Super glad,
All
guys.
right.
You guys can find me on LinkedIn too if you have any additional questions.
Or on Instagram. I think you might be cooler on Instagram over
Yeah, I think I'm
LinkedIn.
cooler on Instagram too.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's kind of nerdy, but I love it.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys. Cynthia, have an amazing evening, and everyone have a beautiful day.
Enjoy your sunset.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Sure.